Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Living Beyond the Cube. I'm your host, Matthew Canada, and in today's episode, we are basically going to be talking about what you can expect throughout this podcast. Now, I'll go ahead and be honest. This is basically my first podcast episode, and I'm a little bit nervous, so guess really just getting out the jitters, and also it's kind of a little bit weird talking to myself, but I guess it's going to be something I'm going to have to get used to until I start having guests on the podcast. So first, who am I? So I am Matthew Canada. I consider myself to be a child of God, and I am currently working as an engineer. Now, I decided to start my entrepreneurship journey because I really feel like I'm in jail when I'm at work, if I'm being honest. I want to be able to travel. I want to be able to spend time with friends and family when I want to and not have to worry about money. And entrepreneurship is basically the way that I see that being possible. Because with entrepreneurship, if you're able to solve a lot of problems and a lot of people's problems, then you will be able to have a lot of money coming in and be able to have the freedom that you desire to have. Now, it wasn't always like this that I thought that entrepreneurship was going to be my route, because when I first went to school, I thought that I was going to be rich if I became an engineer. And when I became an engineer, what I ended up discovering is that the more money you made, the more taxes you had to pay. And I thought that, maybe if I work more hours, then I will be able to kind of supplement that. And when I started working more hours, the more hours I put in, it seemed like the even less I got paid. So then that's when I started to actually consider entrepreneurship, and this was back in 2021. I started to consider entrepreneurship, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, what am I going to do? And my first business was actually selling watches. My thing was I really liked watches at an affordable price, luxury watches at an affordable price, and that is the reason why I decided to sell watches. And I was seeing a lot of people saying, all you have to do is go run Facebook ads. And then when you run the Facebook ads, you'll be able to just sell stuff. Well, I was running Facebook ads and I was not getting the results that I wanted. And it wasn't honestly until more so recently that I understood the reason why I wasn't getting the results that I wanted was because I didn't understand what I was doing. But if I would have stuck with it, I would have been able to actually get the results. So what is exactly this purpose of the podcast? The purpose of this podcast is to help you. Maybe you're a 9-to-5 worker, maybe you're an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or another high income earner, and you're considering quitting your job and you don't know where to start. You've been watching YouTube videos, you've been watching or listening to podcasts, and a lot of these entrepreneurs who have podcasts are speaking from a perspective of they've already made it. And a lot of them will give you tips and say, hey, you just need to do this. Hey, you just need to do that. But they are so disconnected from when they were actually in the rut, when they were actually starting, that it may kind of cause you to have a disconnect with them. And even though they're providing you with valuable information, you can't necessarily use it right now because you're stuck at this level. Let's say it's level 1. You're stuck at level 1 and they're at level 100. And although they did go through level 1, they're so far from level 1 that it's kind of hard for them to connect with you. So seeing that I currently still have a job and I'm working to become a full-time entrepreneur, I thought that this would be great for people to, for one, come together, and then also for me to be able to share the process so that you know exactly what it is that you need to consider, because there are many things you need to consider, especially if you've gotten used to having a 9-to-5 job, and especially if you are considering quitting your job and going full-time entrepreneur. There are many things you need to think about, and that's what this podcast is going to be about. So as I stated earlier, who is this podcast for? Okay, this podcast is for engineers, lawyers, doctors, healthcare professionals, mainly millennial professionals who are tired of their job. You can't see yourself working a 9-to-5 for the next 10, 20, 30, maybe even the next 5 years, and you're looking for an opportunity to be able to get out of that, and you want to have a direct path to be able to smoothly transition from your 9-to-5 to your full-time entrepreneurship, just so you can start enjoying life. Maybe you've been going to work and you feel like you have stress, you have anxiety, you feel burnt out, you have a sense of hopelessness, and you don't know exactly what it is that is causing that. And honestly, I would say that's probably your job. If you wake up in the morning and you're like, man, I got to go to work, more than likely you are not doing something that's meaningful and that has purpose and that's bringing fulfillment into your life. And you have to go on that journey to decide what it is. For me, I know that there's been plenty of people that I love and care about that have actually passed away in the past 3 to 4 years. And one of the things that I constantly hear at those funerals are, man, I wish I had more time to spend with them. And I was sitting there thinking like, man, while we're living, we should be able to enjoy life. We should be able to have this life of abundance. I know in the Bible it talks about Jesus said that the enemy comes but only to steal, kill, and destroy. But I have come that you may have life and have life more abundantly. So I was like, okay, well, I want to have that abundant life. I want to be able to have a life that is abundant and that is enjoyable, to where I can go out through life, and when someone passes away, I can say, man, I enjoyed the time while they were here. Now, the next thing is, what can you actually expect? So I'm going to be starting off this podcast by posting one episode every single week, and I'm going to be dropping the episodes on Wednesdays. I'm going to be dropping these episodes on Wednesdays. And in the future, that may potentially change, but for right now, I'm going to drop the episodes on Wednesdays. And then I'm also going to be dropping a 5-minute power session. Basically, just like on Mondays, it'll be just like a 5-minute, morning motivation. And we're going to be basically talking about the mindset and how you can actually transform your mindset, and different tips, and just provide you with motivation for the week. Because I know a lot of people, they go and they start their work week, and you're like, man, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go to work. But you need a little bit of motivation, and you don't just need your coffee or espresso shots or whatever it is that you do to help you get through the morning. So that's what we're going to have. We're going to have a full episode on Wednesday, and then we'll have a 5-minute power hour, or not power hour, but a 5-minute fast start to your Mondays for Motivational Mondays. Now, the episode structures are basically going to be me also providing you with information, but I'm going to also have people come on that are experts in their field to provide you and provide us really with information that is going to be needed to help us get started with our jobs. So people that are within finance, people that are within business, people that are within marketing, and all those different things, because I feel like it's very important, or I believe it's very important, for you to really know what you're getting into. When I first got into entrepreneurship and I thought I was just going to start this and make money, there were a lot of different small things that I didn't know about that caused me to just leave when I could have kept going if I had the right mentorship. So that's what I want to make sure that you all, and that really myself also have, is we have good mentorship and have things to think about. That doesn't mean that we're going to implement every single thing that they say. It doesn't mean that, if we don't do what they say, we're going to fail. But it's really just to give us an overview of what it is that we need to think about, what we need to consider when it comes to being on this entrepreneurship journey in those different areas. Now, the format, it'll be, in between storytelling. I'll share some of my stories where I made mistakes and had learning lessons, but then also giving you practical advice on what you can actually do. There's been books that I've read, and of course, I'm sure the people that come on, there's been some things that they've had with trial and error, and I'm basically just don't want you to have to go through the same headache and heartache that I've gone through, or maybe even other people have gone through, so you can have a smoother transition from your 9-to-5 to full-time entrepreneurship. Now, the key topics, as I stated a little bit earlier, we're going to be talking about financial literacy and entrepreneurship, because that is extremely important. If you can't manage your money now, when you get or become an entrepreneur, you're not going to be able to actually stay there, because you're not going to have good money management. Another one is building relationships within entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I also want to talk about is not focusing, or is the lack of focus on those of us that are in relationships with, maybe you're a woman and you're in a relationship with your man, or maybe you're a man in a relationship with your woman, and what is the dynamic, or what are the thought processes that you have when it comes to being in a relationship and being an entrepreneur when your spouse is not an entrepreneur, or when they don't have any interest in that, they just want to be with you. We're also going to talk about building relationships with having mentors, building relationships within business and in the community, and things like that. Also, one of the main things is we're going to talk about personal development and growth, because I've discovered that entrepreneurship is really about developing yourself, developing your mindset, and making sure that you have the tools in your mind and within yourself to actually go out there and do the work that you need to do. The next thing is, what is my entrepreneurship journey? So I kind of talked a little bit about that in the beginning, but basically in 2018, I graduated from college as an engineer, and I thought that I was going to be rich. And I started my watch business, basically working a lot of hours. And I started seeing a lot of people on social media saying, hey, quit your job and start this business and all that. So I did that. And I realized that the bills don't stop coming. So I believe that it's actually a cheat code to still have your job while you're building your business, because of the fact that you don't have to worry about where your next meal is going to come from. You don't have to worry about, are your bills going to get paid? All you have to do is go to work. Once you go to work, get home, and you can spend an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, depending on what your current lifestyle is, on your business, and then you can see it grow over time. But the main thing is just being consistent. The big pictures of what you will gain. The big picture is, I hope that with this podcast, you will actually be able to get some actionable steps to where you can go and quit your job and have a more enjoyable life. That's honestly what the big picture is. The big picture is to get you out of the 9 to 5. If you are not fulfilled with it, if you feel like you're constantly stressed, if you feel like you're burnt out, and it's to get you to leave the job and have an enjoyable life to spend with your friends, your family, and more so be on purpose and not just going through the motions. So if you haven't already, if you found what I've said earlier or what I've said so far in this episode helpful, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can be up to date on when future episodes come out, and so you can also be aware of when we have different events and different things coming up as well, because we will be having events in the future. And if you would like to, you can also go and you can follow me on social media, Living Beyond the Cube on Instagram, also Living Beyond the Cube on Facebook. And you can also, in the future, we're going to actually have our website going up, and it's going to be at Living Beyond, or www.livingbeyondthecube.com. And that's where you can go and you can kind of sign up for things to be a part of our email list. That way you can stay up to date, because I know having a 9 to 5, there's definitely a lot of things that's going on, especially with you being an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. You have plenty of things that's going on within your life that can keep you distracted. So this is basically just to keep you aware of what's going on, keep you up to date on the latest episodes and any events that we have coming out and special guests that we have on the podcast. So I hope that you all are ready to rock and roll. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to actually serenade your ears with some information. And so this is basically the first episode of this podcast, and I will be catching you all in the next episode.